Yo, what up, y'all? Thank y'all so much for dropping by. I'm just gonna dive right in. So today, man, we're gonna dive right into that Gotham Knights and the reason why the game frame rate and the ray tracing and pretty much is not really acting right, and it's only running at 30 FPS. That is very unacceptable for a game like this. As a matter of fact, for a next gen game like this, that's going to be on the Xbox Series X and S and PS5 and PC. And the fans have something to say about that. A lot of fans out there are not pleased, especially if you're a Batman Arkham fan like I am. I'm highly disappointed in WB Games. This is very unacceptable. So we're pretty much going to have a journalist just pretty much break down the reason why this game is doing what it's doing, and to see if it maybe in the future can be patched or fixed, so you guys can get a better understanding of what's going on. Because I know a lot of people are out of the loop and they're trying to figure out why is everybody so upset. So now the reason why everybody's upset is I'm going to drop the video. I'm just going to bring it right in so you guys can get a better understanding of why the fan base is very upset. So here we go.
Gotham is a city that never seems to catch a break. With the latest Gotham Knights title, Batman has made way for the younglings to pick up the battle against crime. But with the biggest battle ahead of that 30 FPS target, is this an uphill battle for the fearless foursome? Now, the game had a lot to live up to, with one of my personal favourite titles of last generation in the sumptuous looking Arkham Knight from Rocksteady Studios, and this title has followed a similar trend of development, not least of which is dropping last generation and targeting 30 FPS. And when it comes to performance, the results across all three current generations are a little broken. The elephant in the room was announced by Warner Bros. Last week ahead of the game's launch, showing they are aware of the impact this will have. So it is performance where we will start. Cutting to the chase, the results are mixed at best, but never good, and they come down to two specific areas. Good old frame rate drops, meaning that the 30 FPS target that created the online stir is an at best scenario across all three consoles. This is bad enough, with again similar to Arkham Knight, the traversal across the city is severely impacted, causing dips into the low 20s across all machines. The Series S seems slightly less affected here, but much of that is resolution related, which I'll explain later. What we have is the game struggling to hit that 33 millisecond frame time. It now needs to create a new frame. And with the streaming in of data, the LED swaps, and general GPU load and memory management, the game can chug severely. Now, this is true on PlayStation 5, Series X and Series S, with it feeling very sluggish to play and choppy. Now, this is of itself bad enough. But to make matters worse, the game also has the other bigger problem at times: incorrect frame pacing. And this is why I always talk about frame time and not frame rate, as the latter is the byproduct of the former. It's also why you see that frame time graph on the left and why it's important, because it is. As you can see, all three consoles present uneven frames. This is bad cadence of new deliveries. New frames should come in at an even cadence, every 33 milliseconds for 30 or every 16 milliseconds for 60. You're not getting that here, which means you see frames presented at that target 33 milliseconds as planned, and then they jump to 16, 55 and even 100 millisecond stutters. The engine is memory bound most likely here in that instantiation of new objects, alpha effects, UI prompts, models, effects, basically context switching all the time. All of these areas of the engine is causing this, and the engine itself then tries to resync back to that target of 30 frames every second, that cadence that is important. But this means the image on screen and thus your play is choppy and can feel like frames are dropping as the gap between each new frame is not consistent. And this happens all the time, except, ironically, when the game is heavily missing its target frame time, and at this point it's just dropping frames. This is why the game feels bad, even though that frame rate at the bottom of the screen is completely flat. The frame time is jumping up and down, and therefore it feels bad to play. But it still hits 30 frames per second, which is why that target is not everything that you need to center on. The problem with these two issues is they can feel the same to the player, and thus the pacing issue is always present unless the game is dipping. The entire play of the title feels the same to the player no matter what you're playing on, As it is dropping frames and it just feels very bad and inconsistent, both from a viewing perspective and from a controller point of view. This is an area the team need to fix very fast, which they will be aware of, but as the issue is most likely a core engine stroke optimization one, simply dropping the resolution would likely not resolve this fully at all. As these issues are predominantly not related to a CPU-GPU bound scenario per se, but more issues within the codebase itself. And we'll briefly look at the PC code to get an idea of this, something I'll cover in a later video. Now what we can see on a medium level specification machine here of my RTX 2070 with a small overclock and a Zen 2700 CPU with 8GB of VRAM, we have performance stutters and frame pacing issues that are no better, and when capped at 30 FPS at least, as the consoles are. This is at the same resolution and settings, or at least as close as I can get in the time I had to compare. We actually dip below 30 very often in cutscenes as the game is currently very GPU demanding. If we remove the 30 FPS cap though, we can see a generally better performance when it's not GPU bound, at least at the same levels as consoles. When I say that, I mean Series X and PlayStation 5. My view here is the team should look at a patch to toggle a 30 FPS cap on or off, as the game supports VRR or FreeSync, as you can see by capturing here, but it's currently always below any meaningful level of that offering any benefit at all. It's just a token gesture. For those with a VRR screen, it may then get close enough into the 40s to feel more consistent, not fixed by any means, but better than it does now. And for those without one, they could at least have potentially improved experience in the quieter sections within battles, but I'll close out my thoughts on this big problem area at the end.
Oh crap! It's Robin! What?
Batman around, as the freaks want to join the party.
They better cut their party short.
Shut up, fire alarm! Die! Die! Die!
Moving on to visuals, and visually the games all look identical across all three platforms based on these early comparisons. The only big difference is resolution. Both PlayStation 5 and Series X run the game at a fixed 3840 by 2160 from a few counts. DRS is possible, not least of which the PC release does support it, but from the dip shown, I think we have no DRS engaged here as the game is targeting 30 FPS, or at least they're so brief because they don't become GPU bound. I didn't pick any up. The Series S runs at a 2560 by 1440 target. Again, DRS is possible, but not noted. But note here, this one is slightly better performing than the other two consoles because it has a 55% lower resolution, and therefore it's got slightly more GPU headroom left over at certain points. Again though, we have identical effects with some nice character models, great per object motion blur, particles, but the overall game does look quite flat in the lighting and materials, both indoor and out. The game supports ray tracing on PC, but there's nothing shown here, and ultimately it does not look a generation ahead of Arkham Knights, aside the big resolution bump. And in reality, you could argue that the art, the design and overall aesthetic is much better on Arkham Knights as it is here. And myself, as a huge Batman fan, this is my personal view of it. Again though, it's not a bad looking title, but generic really, and almost feels like a homage to Arkham styles rather than actually having its own, but you may see it a different way. Loading is quite slow and often in the title, again leaving it very last gen, as going in and out of buildings causes loading, entering the city is a load, and it's very slow to boot into the game with unskippable splash screens, warning of loadings, etc. that have no room to wait around or skip through. You just have to sit and wait for that menu to push across and then you skip into it. Even signing into the server, all of this is quite slow. It all backs up the performance. It's generally quite a clunky affair to start a new game on PC and console alike. Again, it's not bad in and of itself, but with the other bigger issues noted, it leaves a bad first and lasting impression.
The freaks? What are they doing here?
With Batman missing, gangs had become more aggressive. It was only a matter
matter of time before the freaks showed up.
Someone ought to teach them a lesson. I'm on it.
Fire alarm! Die! Die! Die!
I feel like a wrestler. Down you go.
Temperature. Something lights on it.
Still enjoying a life of crime.
Hey, look out here!
Better to stay hidden.
Are the fumes getting to you, buddy? Something like
Hey, look out here!
Just gotta stay out of sight.
Are the fumes getting to you, buddy?
Shut up. This never gets old.
Smashy smash! Got
Weirdo.
Summarising my thoughts on the game as it stands today ahead of launch, the game does not feel ready for showtime, not yet, in my opinion at least, with obvious performance issues, core engine bugs that need to be resolved to enable a far more consistent performance, and a very clean and sharp IQ for sure, but an art style and city that looks bland and flat. The city is quite barren of cars, people, and general hustle to feel like Gotham. Pop-in is very bad, compounded by the clear issues on streaming, causing severe dips whenever you travel, which is a core element of the game. And all four characters use the same vehicle, leaving them little more than window dressing on the same storyline you play through with separate voiceovers. The performance issues on the launch code though are by far and away the biggest issue. Again, using the PC as a proxy view of the console potential settings, the game does support DRS and a great selection of upscaling from FSR 2.0, DLSS, XES, and even Unreal Engine's TAAU. If we enable that on the RTX 2070 with a 60 FPS target using the balance mode of DLSS and a lowest scale of 80% of 4K, which is approximately 1944p, whilst the team work on resolving the bugs, this would likely resolve many of the performance issues seen and felt outside of travel. But the same settings on PC here show the issues when travelling still occur and are not GPU or CPU bound, but data issues as I noted. Thus even at 1080p wouldn't solve this, as you can see the GPU is constantly stalling on workloads even at this dynamic 4K setting. During traversal it can become bound or at least very close to on a single thread. That's one area they need to work on to multi-thread, but in addition to this the performance just doesn't improve even if you give it the best GPU possible. Here running at 4K on an RTX 3090 from Destin, we can see that just running through the opening section, this is at max settings admittedly, but this is an RTX 3090, significantly more powerful than anything these consoles are putting out, and it still hovers somewhere in the 40s through these small combat sections, just showing you how much work needs to be done to improve the performance across the board. And this is with the 5950X as a CPU, so it's not struggling on both ends of the spectrum. I understand the challenges the team have here, and by hitting 4K resolutions at 30 FPS, it is the least impactful versus running at 60 FPS then lurching down to sub 30 as you can see here. But I think a quick patch to at least unlock the FPS with a small 1800p resolution target, or DRS if they can enable it, 1080p on the Series S, would help the enjoyment for all, whilst the team work on clearing out those bats. still in their belfry.
And there you guys have it right there. He pretty much broke down why you don't have a high resolution or frame rate on Gotham Knights series. And I know that right there upset a lot of pretty much Batman Arkham fans like myself, because Batman is my favorite character. So I really am upset about that. So if you guys would like to be notified on all of the new latest and greatest news in these gaming streets, guys, make sure you smash that like, that subscribe button, click that notification bell. And if you would like to jump into the Xbox ecosystem, the PlayStation ecosystems, if you have a PC only, just click the link down in the description. And if you would like to rent games, click the GameFly link in the description, guys. So pretty much till next time, peace.